The headlines from the national media are eye-grabbing at best. Wealthy white Louisiana residents split from Baton Rouge to form their own city. But is race a real issue at the core of this municipal secession? The 86,000 residents who are forming their own city in St. George, Louisiana, say it's about better schools for their children and better city services. Baton Rouge is more than 50% black, and those who are against a split say the city will be hurt by this action to create a new city, which was approved by the Louisiana State Supreme Court last Friday after a 5-year-long battle.
What is up, everyone? You watch On Air Nick Jabba podcast here on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and you'll be notified of all my upcoming video releases. Guys, I'm on the road today, but I do this podcast every day. So today I will be filming it from my phone. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. This is a massive story, St. George and in Louisiana. And you know, basically, according to the story, people wanted this particular group that wants to create their own city, wants to actually have better schools for the children. And it sounds like it's a highly racial area. So they probably want to put a little space between each other. That's what it looks like to me. The next clip here we're going to show you, they actually have someone from the NAACP, Eugene Collins, talking about this. Why they didn't have someone who actually split, I don't know. I'm sure one of them would have spoke to the news. However, there is a guy from the NAACP speaking about this, and I have my own thoughts on that. We'll get to it soon.
And joining us on The Factor Uncensored tonight, we have with us Eugene Collins, who's the former president of the NAACP in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Eugene, you guys have quite a situation there with St. George, the community now breaking off, becoming its own city after the Louisiana Supreme Court approved it. So what do you think this will do to the city of Baton Rouge?
It's confusing, right? When you look at it just on the surface, there's so many unknowns to the city of Baton Rouge. So already what it has done is severely confuse the residents. And the biggest concern that I've seen so far is about where do people send their kids to school, right? Because you have a ton of folks that live in that area that if a new school district is established over the next 2 years, I mean, you got some legacy things that folks that might have went to some of the inner city Baton schools that now maybe have to go to school in St. George, and those families are up in the air. So what is already caused, in my opinion, is severe confusion. And I think some of the dangers of it futuristically is you continue to further divide an already highly racially charged area. And that just can't be good for the city of Baton Rouge overall and over time. But at the same time, I want to acknowledge that these folks are organized. They went out and got the votes. They raised money to continue their legal battles. And they went through a democratic process to get this city established, for which, you know, I understand democracy and I understand that's the way that government is supposed to work. But at the same time, it's a dangerous notion, I believe, for the city of Baton Rouge.
All right, guys, you heard that from Eugene Collins, the former leader of the NAACP in that particular chapter in Louisiana. You know, guys, what happens a lot of times with these particular situations is you'll have a group of people in this particular situation, a group of wealthier white people, and they wanted to break off so that they could actually have better schools for their children. Now, that's what he said. He also mentioned it was a highly racialized area. You know, they probably feel unsafe in certain situations, and therefore they are deciding to build their own city. You know, the one thing that I find crazy whenever, you know, we're talking about these types of situations is the idea of you have a group of wealthy white people that are probably funding most of those programs in that area. And probably a lot of those programs are not beneficial to the people that are actually paying most of the taxes there in town. So whenever they move or they decide they have different city barriers, then all that money will now go towards whoever is in their area, in their living area, that actually will follow through on policies that they like. That is really what this comes down to at the end of the day.
And of course, for those who are wondering, how did we get here? You look at the New York Post, you look at the Daily Mail, and the headlines show mainly white, wealthy community pulls out of Baton Rouge, starting their own city. Would that be accurate? And what is the reasoning behind pulling out of Baton Rouge from your perspective and what you know?
Well, when you look at the basis of what they have publicly said about their argument to separate from the city of Baton Rouge, it's been based around better schools, right? Which in itself on its face doesn't make a ton of sense, right? Because you have some people that have supported this movement that have held seats on our school board, right? And it's supposed to be their job to improve schools. So that notion in itself is kind of contradictory to what we see on his face. Not to mention, when you look at the makeup of the organizers and you don't have any people of color amongst them, it's hard not to make the assumption that this is something that might be racially driven.
Guys, you guys heard that. Now, what do you think in the comments? Do you think this is racially driven? Do you think this is something that the wealthier white people are just doing because they want to feel safer? They want to have better schools for the kids? What do you guys think in the comments? Let me know. You know, as for me, I think this is a pretty simple thing. I don't think this is that complex. I think what it comes down to is they probably are getting everything that they're voting for in their district, everything that these people want. They're probably outnumbered when it comes to their political opinions, and therefore they are funding a bunch of programs that are not beneficial to them. I think that's probably what this comes down to. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. You guys have a blessed day. You watch your own air. Nick Driver podcast. Take care.